And Robert Costa, national political reporter for The Washington Post. Mark Thompson is a radio host with Sirius XM Progress. And my dear friend Ron Insana, a CNBC contributor. Roberto, to you first. What exactly is the message President Trump is sending to our allies?
This is a message he's been sending ever since he was first inaugurated in 2017. Remember the Paris Accords, the G7 meeting just recently in Canada. This is a president who does not see international order in the traditional way that both Democrats and Republicans have for decades. And it continues to have repercussions for the U.S. role in the world, for its reputation. But the president believes this hard edge on trade and other fronts is necessary. But it's certainly a point of debate here and abroad.
Okay, Ron, let's focus on Trump and Germany. Axios says this is about two things. Trump wants Germany to buy their gasoline from the United States, and he views Angela Merkel as a hypocrite who sucks up to Vladimir Putin but wants us to pay for defense.
Well, there's a certain incoherence to this entire relating the two. Number one, we don't have enough liquefied natural gas export terminals to send gas all around the world. China has already begun to buy it from us. With respect to these other issues sucking up to Vladimir Putin, I mean, Russia is one of the only places in the various pipelines that come through Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and Russia are natural selling points for Europe when it comes to energy. The other point that the president has ignored is that Germany is a world leader in alternative energies, trying to limit its dependence on both crude oil and natural gas, something the president opposes. So I'm not quite sure where the president's going with all this, and certainly just from a broader international relations perspective, he is not doing anything that supports the United States' positions on trade with China. He's losing allies on that front, and nothing to bolster Europeans' ongoing defenses against Germany. Some of his claims, by the way, about NATO are flat wrong. When you talk about a $706 billion defense budget, that is our defense budget, part of which goes to protecting a lot of other countries as a consequence of World War II. These are very old institutions. They may need updating, but they're very important.
Your nuanced and sophisticated factual details are lost, my friend. When the president gets on the world stage and says the United States has been ripped off for years and I'm here to protect you, that works for his base. But I want to go to the New York Times editorial because they wrote, NATO is not a golf club. And money, the only thing Mr. Trump prizes is just one narrow measure of the cost and benefits of belonging. This president has shown no understanding of the power of partnership and the reciprocal nature of its bonds in an alliance that stands for something far bigger than paying your dues on time. Now, this is the New York Times saying that, and the president could say, fake news, they stink, they don't like me. But guess what the Senate did just before this NATO meeting? They voted 97-2 to support the NATO alliance. So what does that tell you?
Well, as usual, he's playing to his base. But more importantly, as your own intelligence expert has said, he is a witting agent of the Russian government and Vladimir Putin. So he's doing a few things with what he did this morning. One, he's calling Angela Merkel a hypocrite and saying that what she's doing is inappropriate. So that he can look tough on Russia before he meets with Vladimir Putin. You're very inappropriate, so he can look tough saying that. Secondly, he's pointing out their relationship with Russia so that he can probably come back later on and justify his own relationship with Russia. You know, it's the most objective speculation from everyone that there is something going on between him and Putin that's been going on since before the campaign. Even people who may somewhat support the president look at that. That's being analyzed. Mueller is investigating that. So he's a childlike reality TV show host, Stephanie. Trump, you're colluding with Russia. No, you're a captive. You're a captive. It's just a plate of dozens type of a thing. And then lastly, and the German government has said, since he said it this morning, there may be, you know, only a 9% relationship when it comes to this energy with Russia. And we have to examine how that came about in the first place, considering Russia and Ukraine and the EU depending on the Ukraine at one time. But it looks like he may also be setting up a case, Stephanie and Ron, whereby if a relationship with Russia is good enough for Germany to any extent outside of NATO, then why not have a relationship with them inside of NATO? Because Putin wants one or two things, either to be allowed back into NATO or for NATO to go away.
To cease to exist.
So he's doing Putin's work.
Okay, then Robert Costa, security experts, all of us here could analyze the importance of NATO and the president's moves. But let's leave this newsroom and let's leave yours. Let's go to your parents' dinner table or mine or around the country. Do people understand the importance of the NATO alliance? Or does the president's argument, look how much we're spending versus look how much they're spending, does that sell better or more to the American people?
It's a great question, Stephanie. And if you think about the foreign policy debate in this country, you've had people like Ron Paul, the former Texas congressman, for years talk about this isolationist streak in America and that he's tried to seize on that as he ran for president, but it never really got a lot of traction. What makes the president different is that he's not couching it in ideological terms. He's instead almost approaching this as a salesman, bantering, negotiating with U.S. allies with almost no historical context about World War II or fighting the Soviet Union mentioned in any of his deliberations, just as a sale, just as a negotiation. Could that appeal to a base voter or even just an independent who doesn't really follow foreign policy closely or understand the fundamentals? Perhaps it could. And that's the president's gambit here. He believes he can reframe foreign policy on his terms.
All right, or does unpredictable and abusive work, you heard it there, our NATO allies have spent more this year?
Well, okay, but we're quibbling over dollars and cents when the entire structure of the NATO alliance, first of all, by reducing Germany's defense budget after World War II, that was a strategic move to keep them from starting another war, just as the European Union was designed ultimately to limit Germany's aggression on the continent by tying their economic fortunes to the rest of Europe. That was done very deliberately. The same with Japan. The reason we provide an umbrella in the Pacific is to dampen military activities that took place over the course of the 20th century. So this has a long history. Whether or not it needs revision and updating is one question. Going about it this way with an incoherent strategy that alienates our allies, whom we need economically and militarily, doesn't seem like it's coming from anyone who appreciates the role of history, as Robert was saying, in the formation of NATO, the World Trade Organization, the United Nations, and a host of other multilateral institutions.
All right, then my takeaway, it sounds like it may be time to clean it up, and the president wants to tear it up. Thank you all. Stick around. We're going to continue this conversation more with my esteemed panel this morning. And up next, Supreme Court nominee, we've been talking about him for 2 days now, Brett Kavanaugh, travels to the Hill again today as the confirmation battle heats up. Democrats, they're vowing to fight his nomination tooth and nail. Here's the problem. They can't actually do anything. Elections matter. President Trump won. He gets to call the shots on this one. And later, we're going to go back to the border where the government still has more than 60% of kids, this kills me, younger than 5 years old, separated from their families, and children